guess it's 12:30. We should start. And Ninamani, they're the Ghana words for hello, how are you? And acknowledging the land that I am meeting with you from today are the unceded lands of the Ghana people, and I respect their spiritual relationship with this land. And we also pay our respects to the cultural authority of First Nations people attending from other areas of Australia and New Zealand who are present here today. So my name is Annette Mills, and together with Jill Rogers and Kerry Shaw, we are delighted to host this ALIA Digitisation and Digital Preservation webinar titled Culturally Conscious Display, Ethical Practices for Digital Collections. So we will briefly cover some practical issues about culturally and socially appropriate levels of display when creating public online digital collections, and try to instill some sense of confidence in our community about some realistic pathways to consider, rather than becoming paralysed with fear and uncertainty, and then returning the collections back into the repository for the next generation to be confronted with the same questions and issues. So today's webinar is presented by Taputukura Raea from the National Library of New Zealand, where she is currently the Program Manager for Digitalpasifik, a website which is part of the Pacific Virtual Museum. We are, I feel, very fortunate that Taputu has accepted our invitation to speak with us today with her insights and experiences managing the complex Digital Pacific program and hearing about some of the strategies and approaches the program has taken in navigating some of these areas. If you feel at any stage that this presentation could be triggering, confronting, or bring up issues for you, please be proactive and take care of yourself and do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. So during the webinar, please post your questions in the chat and Kerry will monitor these and we will address questions at the end. So on that note, welcome and over to you, Taputu. Thank you.
Thank you. Just quickly figure out how to share my screen and hopefully everything will work perfectly. Okay. Share. Okay, I hope everyone can see something.
Yeah, that's working beautifully.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Where are mine? Cool. Kia ora everyone. I would just like to open up with a karakia or a blessing to seek guidance and protection and positive outcomes for this presentation. So I'll start off with a short karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki ota, kia mā taratara ki tai, he hi ake ana te atakura, he teo, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei mauriora. Kia ora ana tātou kātoa tōku inga ko Taputukura Raea no Mauke e Pāmati mai au, e anga ana au I roto I te pono mātauranga o Aotearoa, e Program Manager te au. So kia ora ana everyone, my name is Taputukura Raea and I'm the Program Manager for a website called Digital Pacific. And today I'm going to be sharing about navigating cultural awareness and sensitivity in displaying digital collections online and why it shouldn't be too hard. I'll be sharing some helpful tips I've learned while working on Digital Pacific. And so I may not have all the answers, but will share my experience to working through some of the challenges we have faced. So for this presentation, just giving a disclaimer, this is from my perspective and aren't the views of my organisation. So my personal views and perspectives are from being a Pacific woman born and raised in New Zealand, brought up in Pacific values such as respect, serving your community, reciprocity, family and collectivism, but also my previous roles as working with communities across New Zealand, focusing on Māori and Pacific peoples. And my current role working with Pacific communities and opening up the collections for them. I believe that my role is being a bridge between Pacific communities, our Pacific glam sector and the international glam sector. I'm also just sharing examples I've had working on this project. So another disclaimer, I may not have all the answers again. So being able to connect with these groups firsthand and seeing how we can provide support. So this brings us to the Uto model, which is the growing seed of a coconut. So this is a model that was developed to help explain our role as Digital Pacific as the connectors. So at the center of the Uto, the coconut, is the fruit. So this is the spongy marshmallow part of the coconut, which we class as Pacific culture. And this is the center of our work. The next part is the kātinga, which is the white flesh. This is Pacific communities. They're the holders and practitioners of the culture and why they're the closest part to the fruit. The next part is the ipua kari, which is the hard outer shell. This is our Pacific Glam sector. So all of the Pacific organisations that look after our treasures, they offer a layer of protection and preservation for Pacific culture and have connections with their communities to best understand traditional protocols, but often have limited resources to make their collections available online. And the inner husk, which is we class as Digital Pacific. This is the inner part of the uto that Pacific people use to make sinnet lashings to bind houses and outriggers. So as Digital Pacific, we are the connectors. We connect Pacific communities that don't access their treasures or their messina, Pacific glam sector that might not have the resources, and the international glam sector that doesn't have connection with Pacific communities. The outward husk is international glam sector. So the sector outside of the Pacific that holds significant Pacific collections, they protect and preserve, but often don't have connections with the communities that hold the knowledge. They have resources, but don't often have the connections to get this knowledge from the communities. And then the last part is our Pacific learners, the shoot. They're the ones that allow the culture to live on. When all of us are working and are connected, they have the opportunity to flourish. So as Digital Pacific, we feel the responsibility to connect all parties to ensure that Pacific culture will grow and be passed on to future generations. So that's us. So the Digital Pacific website, we are a mega aggregator, meaning we harvest from a variety of different institutions across the world. So Europe, America, Australia, New Zealand, Pacific, and beyond. So we share collections from the glam sector, Pacific communities, universities, media, and individuals like artists. So we get to see 933 organisations and how they present their collections online, but also how we can see how communities that these collections belong to and how they react to them and how they're presented. So why is it important to share for Pacific communities? So for Pacific context, thousands of records and collections have been displaced from the Pacific where they belong due to colonisation. Those that hold the collections may have some of their Pacific collections on display and available online, but majority of their collections have yet to be digitised. So a significant part of Pacific history and culture is inaccessible for the people it belongs to. For our Pacific people, finding where you belong, who you are related to, so Akapakapa'anga, which is genealogy in Cook Island, and Inua, which is land, is an integral part of our cultural identity. But there are many challenges when trying to access these records. If they haven't been digitised, having to travel to see these collections in person, inaccuracies with metadata when trying to search our systems, or often many people don't know that these records exist because they don't have connections with the institutions, and the institutions don't know how to connect with these communities. So the Pacific Glam sector have limited training and support to make their collections available online. So having no presence online and no access to what they hold. So many of you belong to these institutions that have their stuff. So these records matter to them. And it's allowing them to connect to their cultural heritage, especially for Pacific diaspora that don't practice their culture and finding ways to reconnect. Okay, so the next thing, hopefully everyone's listening still. We're going to do a quick activity. So this is an activity that I've done previously with Pacific communities. Often they are shy and they think that they don't know any knowledge about the collections because what's written about them, they think that's the truth. So what I'm going to get you to do is shout out, if possible, or maybe just write it in the chat, anything that you might know or think about this image. So who, what, where, and maybe the year. Hopefully that's okay for everyone. Yep. Okay, so the first image I'm going to show is this one. So feel free to write in the chat, if possible, what your thoughts or what the metadata or the information might be of this image. Anything? Anyone writing anything yet? A girl? Yep. What about the time? Young girl, where do you think she might be from? Pacific woman, nice. Um, yep, yep. 1800s, 1900s, nice. Maybe 1900s. Okay. So I'm going to click what, when I did the same activity to Pacific communities, what they thought the metadata might be. Uh, Possibly Cook Island or Tahitian. Looks like 1800s. And young Pacific woman. And so when we show what the actual metadata is or the information attached to this image, the title is just woman. And then it has production, so it's from George Crummer around 1914, Cook Islands, black and white negative portrait, sheet glass, silver photographic plates. So a lot of information about what the image is, but not who's actually in it or the location. It does say Cook Islands though. Okay, so the next one, we'll do one more. So feel free to write in what you think this information might be about it. Do you know what culture he might be from? Yep, warrior, man, yep. Yep, man holding a ceremonial tool, yep, 1800s. Cool, so when I showed the community, they identified him as a Samoan man. He's wearing a ulufala Samoan necklace made from pandanus and looks like he's holding a nifu oti. So they were able to identify him by what he's wearing in the image as well. But again, when we look at the metadata, what's written about him, yeah, you're right, man. So it has limited information about where he's from. It has a lot of information about the picture and the what the picture, how much it measures, but not really much about where he's from. So this kind of brings me to my point why impact of metadata and incomplete metadata. So this brings up the issue of impact of incomplete metadata when attached to records. When we get terms that don't help communities find these collections, man and woman are such general terms, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. There are identifiers in the image that help to identify what culture the people are from, but aren't used, maybe because the ones that are trying to identify it don't know. And you see more information about the photographer and the size of the photo than who the photo is about. So yeah, be brave and open to feedback. So trying to be perfect isn't always the best solution. We have had many conversations with our partners that share on our website. Oh, we can't share because we're working on the whole collection and making sure that our metadata is correct, or it's not good enough yet, but having our collection viewable is a way that you can get feedback and improve your metadata and be seen. So for Pacific organisations, we ask them that send through what you have because we want your audience to know that you exist. So Digital Pacific shines a light on your flaws. For instance, in LA, when we were talking about including Torres Strait Island, collections in Digital Pacific website, they didn't have a location for them and they were classed under Queensland. So they made the effort to change all their records to include Torres Strait as a location so people could find and search for Torres Strait. And communities want to see the collections and know where they are located. So making collections available means you are open to receiving feedback and information. So two examples of what we're doing at the National Library is He Kupu Pāma Mai He Kupu Ora, which is a working group was formed to describe the National Library collections using updated and inclusive language that reflects diversity of our users and materials that we make available. So many communities are not well represented in our collections, and some have been described in derogatory, dismissive, or dative ways. And this can lead to language appearing in our collections that are incorrect or has potential to harm. So this working group are going through all the records to improve the language used to describe the collections. And another example is Te Mauri o Mātauranga Purihi Te Akina, Principles and Care of Preservation of Māori Materials. So the four principles we follow, the care and preservation of Māori materials are kaitiakitanga, which is guardianship, te mahi tahitanga, which is relationships, te whakaatu i ngā kōrero mō te kūtuhi, which is attribution, te whakapākari i ngā kaimahi, which is cultural development. So these four principles give effect to the National Library's commitment to the Treaty of Waitangi and represent operational best practice in terms of managing cultural property. And so these principles are also used to inform operational policies relating to all aspects of collection management, access and use, including non-Māori materials. So allowing for feedback, users for Digitalpasifik users can report items and people can get in touch with you? Do you answer their requests? Is your general email managed? So this is a pop-up that we use on our Digitalpasifik website. It states names, terms, and labels that we present on the site may contain images or voices, deceased persons, and may also reflect the bias and norms or perspectives of the period of time which they were created. So we accept that these might not be appropriate today. And also on each of the items that we share on Digitalpasifik, we have a report button and work with them to decide if the collection should be taken down. So yeah, over there. And so terms that we can use, unknown to unidentified. So this was suggested from one of our co-design members. People do know who they are, but are yet to be identified. So opening up to communities that they belong to identify them. So that's a term that we're trying to encourage our users or our content partners to use instead of unknown, because we just don't know them, other people do. And also for Pacific context, Pacific island names have changed over time and old names might not be still used and old names might still be used in the metadata. So for instance, Hawaii is also known as Sandwich Islands, Tuvalu, Ellis Islands, but when Pacific people are trying to find their collections, they might not be using these old terms. So for Digitalpasifik, when describing the website, we identified them as islands and cultures rather than countries. So for instance, Hawaii instead of USA, Rotuma instead of Fiji, archipelagos instead of French Polynesia. And so we asked the people from these islands how they would like to be identified and implemented it into the front page of our website. And another one was Wallace and Fortuna. They didn't want to be called Wallace and Fortuna. They call themselves Uvea or Fortuna because Wallace apparently didn't go to the island. And so it was really good to kind of have that feedback and that we could actually implement that to our website. Another one, yeah, was around the French Polynesia. So they were like, we don't call ourselves French Polynesia. We call ourselves by the archipelagos that we belong to. So Society Islands, but they also translated it to what they call themselves. So Totema. And yeah, so having that feedback from the community and our audience was really good. And making sure that we are respecting how they want to be known. The next part is around knowing when to take down. Another way is to have networks so you can get advice on different collections and whether it's appropriate to share. So with Digital Pacific, our co-design group, we discussed the ATR comic collection, and because many of these collections showed derogative cartoons towards the Pacific, their advice was not to show this collection, because if we wanted to make relationships with the Pacific, we needed not to offend them. And so this is one of the examples that was in this collection, which is Colonel Frank Bainimarama, self-imposed leader of Fiji. Government bounces about on a large banana that represents Fiji, banging a broken drum and tooting and whistling on several other musical instruments. He declares that we are not dictatorship, refers to Bainimarama's illegal assumption of the reins of Fiji government, and the banana refers to Fiji's being considered as a banana republic. And so, seeing a Fijian reading this is offensive to them and their country. So this collection is still available to search on National Library, but our website is specifically for a Pacific audience. So we decided not to share this on our website. And then another collection that we decided not to display is from a European partner. So we harvest a large number of collections from Europeana, and when we first brought their material into the site, I reviewed each one. So during that process, came across some sensitive items that showed deceased people that had not been blurred or restricted in any way. There was no pop-ups or sensitive data on it. Because the images were inappropriate for our platform, we made the decision to not include that particular collection on Digital Pacific. And this was guided by a review process that we have on our website. So our review principles, our values. And so for our takedown policy, reasons for takedown should be clearly highlighted that legal or cultural reasons for the dereferencing requests or why access restrictions are being requested among possible reasons. So if the material is defamatory, the record or item being held on the site is unlawful under New Zealand legislation, or the material is personal information making it available online would breach our privacy rights and cultural and ethical considerations. So I think for cultural and ethical considerations, this content should not be shown on our website. And so we took that down. And so those collections aren't available to be seen on our website. And I should really reach out to them to show that this isn't appropriate to show human remains on their website without a disclaimer or blurred or anything. But also, if you're a holder of these collections, making sure that the collection has sensitive content notice, but the metadata is still available to search. So this is important for repatriation projects and knowing where these artifacts are. So currently, one of my friends is working on a project on repatriating Samoan remains from Germany. And so having that information available to know where they are is going to help make sure that these collections are looked after properly and being returned to their rightful homes. So I think to do this and to make sure that you're making the right decisions on whether you display these collections is around building connections with your communities. And a good example is the Pacific Collection Access Project. So from 2016 to 2019, Auckland Museum opened up access to its Pacific Treasures collections and created stronger connections with Auckland Pacific communities. So this included from musical instruments to weapons, textiles to carvings, tools to ornaments. So the project enabled the Pacific Collection to be better known, cared for, and accessible on-site, off-site, and online. So the project focused on the collections from 13 island nation groupings, which were worked over the 3 years. So these included Cook Islands, East Island, Fiji, French Polynesia, Hawaii, Kiribati, Niue, Pitcairn Islands, Samoa, Tokelau, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Wallis and Futuna. So communities were invited into the museum to identify and explain what these objects were, how they were used, and traditional names. This was then added to the metadata and community was acknowledged. So this is just a short video to show how the metadata changed by having these communities come and visit and share their knowledge on the collections. Yeah. And so that project was kind of a guiding that helped us with Digital Pacific, being able to share the collections online and how we could get information from the people that the collections belong to. And for us, another way to connect with communities is through social media. It has allowed our communities to connect with our digital collections. So we did a social media campaign with a Pacific radio station so that they could help us identify the young girls in this image. So this image was from Archives New Zealand, titled Pacific Islands, Cook Islands, Rarotonga Children from Awaroa performing folk dancing. I don't think they're doing folk dancing, they're doing ora. Yeah. So this is the example of the social media campaign. So we did it this way so that we could encourage the audience to click on the source image on our website and add information there. Because most times they just add on the comments in the Facebook post and then that is not relayed back to our content partners. And those that did add information on to the website, we had vouchers and prizes as well. So from that campaign, we were able to identify the young girls, also a bit of context of what they're doing and why. So this was possibly practicing their dance for a Friday assembly, but we were very lucky that one of the users, Curly, was able to identify all her aunties in the image. And then a bit of context as well from another user. And so one of my friends, this is another example with social media can be really helpful. So one of my friends was visiting a museum in Budapest and got to go behind the scenes and found some images from the Cook Islands and sent it through. So we shared it on our social media and got lots of comments about the man in the image. So including protecting. So this man was known as the King of Manihiki, and he was known for protecting his people from the blackbirding. So while other chiefs were encouraging their people to go on the ships um, to work, he protected them from not allowing them to go. So other comments said that they had similar images in their home and could name who this man was in the picture, even though this image was from 1893 to 1896. So yeah, social media has been a great way to get extra information on our collections. Another thing we did was we worked with the Übersee Museum in Bremen. They were wanting to create a virtual museum where people could explore the Pacific collections through virtual reality. And we told them that our experience with working with the Pacific and the challenge of internet connection and how expensive it was, and that they probably won't be able to see it. And since we told them that advice, they came back with a whole new project and they created a Facebook page so that they could connect with the community um, as a whole and the project as a whole and made their collections more accessible by connecting Pacific people in the Pacific. So this Facebook page that they created, they also did live webinars showing the collections to the people, asking them what they knew about the collections. And so from that webinar, they were able to they had a few Facebook posts and they were able to identify this man in the photograph with the help of the community and able to add so much much more information about the collection as well. So this was recently published in the latest journal about the reactions from the people seeing these collections as well. So one of them was, oh my God, that's our grandmother. So it's being able to find where your community is that these collections belong to and showing them and allowing them to give feedback. It's also important when collecting new items from communities to get all the information. So one way is through local context and traditional knowledge labels. So this allows the community to select labels that attach to the collections and grounding Indigenous rights. So these labels allow communities to have their say, how they want to be displayed, how the content is used. This information attached helps in the future how collections should be used and displayed, so we aren't guessing. So some examples are ensuring that those in the film are attributed, the people in the film are happy about how they're portrayed in the video, not for economical gain, and they are open for collaboration for educational purposes. Communities can also create their own labels, for instance, if the collection can only be viewed by females or if it's seasonal or for certain tribes. And so those will be attached to the collection. And so it makes our job easier when we know how to display these. I'm going to see if I can play this video. And this is a project I co-produced with my Cook Islands community to capture the endangered languages of the Cook Islands. So when I went to each of these communities and asked them if they were willing to share knowledge on their individual island and their language, they asked me how would I ensure that their knowledge would be protected in the future and that no one would profit from this video. And this is when I chose to work with the traditional knowledge labels. So they chose labels on the previous slide, and this was the first time that they would be used on a video by Indigenous communities. So hopefully I can play it. So this is a short clip of how they were displayed on the video. If not, I am just going to play the video and you don't need to hear it. You can just see what they're doing. Hmm. Sorry. So what she's doing is they're singing in the background and they're talking their native tongue, and she's asking them about why making this A or what she's doing is important for the younger generation. And soon we will see a pop-up with little images. Very soon will pop up right here. So these are the labels that I just mentioned. And so these come up 3 times in the video to show that these labels have been picked by the community and that they're happy with how they've been used. It also comes up in the credits, just explaining what these labels mean. But I don't know if when I'm looking through like the video collections that we do have the National Library, if I had seen these labels, I would know how to deal with it and whether I should be sharing it online. So I think when we're collecting, we should try and think about these kind of questions to help us in the future. Yeah. And it's good because I asked them directly about what they wanted. But yeah, most of the collections that we do get, we don't have access to the communities that did create it. So another resource that is coming out of Europe very soon is GLOCO. So it's a glossary of Indigenous terms uploaded by Indigenous people. So this website explains the terms and it gives it context and how it should be used and pronounced, which I think will be really helpful in improving our metadata. So yeah, this is about to be released in a few months. And so it's coming out of the University of Vienna. We have one girl from Samoa who's added Samoan terms, but most of the terms at the moment are from Africa and Asia. But I think this will be a great way to encourage Indigenous communities to add their terms and how to use it as well when trying to identify collections. Oops. Oh, that's a video. Yeah. And so what's really cool is you can click on read more, and then Indigenous communities can add a picture, but they can also have a voice recording as well. And so you can add to it. Yeah. And it will have related words as well. So I think this will be a great initiative for Indigenous people to use. And next part. And so takeaways. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. So share what you can, be open to feedback. Terms matter, ensuring that collections are findable. Connect with communities, they have the answers. Create networks, share ideas and challenges. Principles and guidance, and they can help guide and inform your work. And collecting information, get all the information when you are collecting. And because it's Cook Island Language Week here in New Zealand, I've got a picture of the island that my parents are from, my mum's from, so Palmerston. But yeah, does anybody have any questions?
That was really great, Taputu, very insightful. And I think bringing things back to principles and being respectful. And I think asking why questions, like why making this available,
Mm,
um, why you're doing this. While I guess people kind of gather their thoughts, I might just lead with a question. Um,
mhm.
like some organizations are very risk averse. Do you have, or could you have any suggestions about how people might be able to get some support to undertake some of these strategies you've
Mm.
suggested?
I think for like my organization is also very risk averse as well, working in the National Library. And I think it's quite sneaky, but partnering with influential people from the communities that can help change it. I think, so for instance, even like the way that we get people into the library, it's very transactional. Um, they're like, and just with Pacific, you need to have those kind of protocols. So making sure that having food available, giving them a donation, and we don't usually do that. And so those practices aren't done in my institution, but having someone from the council come and say this is the protocol, that kind of forces the institution to do something about it. So I think, yeah, Pacific leaders, or even when so last week we had the Solomon Islands Prime Minister come and visit our collections. And because we had to do our research, that was implemented. So making sure that we had the right protocols as well. So if you have those special guests, make sure that yeah, just make sure you can use that to change policy and protocols in your organization.
That's great. Um, what has been one of the most sort of challenging experience you've had so far with this work?
I think it's I think we make lots of excuses. We're like, oh, we don't have the information about the collections. Oh, we don't have any connections with the community. And that's been hard to make a change, like just people's mindset that it's too hard. When literally I would just Facebook message the community and they will come. So I don't think it is hard. We're just doing it in the wrong ways or ways that we think it's too hard. Yeah, just I think for me, like we have so many collections here, but nobody knows it exists. And then we say we can't change the metadata because we don't know anyone from that community. When I literally just Facebook messaged them and then they came. So I think just finding easy ways to connect with the community has been really helpful. Just
Yes.
acting like it doesn't need to be big policy. You're just like human to human, like, hey, and if you're willing to open your doors to them, they'll be willing to come.
Great, great. Just looking at the chat here. Now, someone asked this question earlier on, which I think you kind of answered in your presentation, looking at principles and respect and
Mm,
ethics. But Shirley Ann's put a question here. Do you need something about the risk of seeing image of a person who's deceased?
mm.
Because have you sort of come across anything like that in your work and how you kind of managed that at the time?
Yeah, I think there was one from that European. There was skulls and deceased people in it, and then like we just kind of went through our policy, like, is this culturally offensive? I'm like, yes, I'm pretty sure people from that culture would not want to be seeing their ancestors seen in that way. And so we decided to take that down. So I think it's just about kind of a human response as well. It's like, would I want my grandfather or my grandmother to be seen in that way? Um, and then, yeah, but I'm not too sure with your institution where you can just take it down. I know for our website, because we're out there for Pacific people, we know, but we can take it down, but it's quite hard. Um, yeah, I accept that it's pretty hard in your organizations of what to put up and what to put down.
Mm. But I think also, but coming back to principles and articulating that
Mm,
clearly on the
yeah,
website somewhere is probably a good first start, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess um, when we first started the website, those principles were made by our co-design group. So I had people from the glam sector, but also from Pacific communities or Pacific people working in the sector. So they helped shape those principles for us. And so that's been easy. Like we know that we're doing the right thing because this comes straight from the people.
Great. Now we've got one, so changing tack a little bit. Jill has commented that she likes that communities contribute themselves to your website. What software do you use?
Oh, so we use a software called Supplejack. Um, So it's a mega aggregator, but we also use another um, program called Contentful. Oh no, I'm not that techy, but it works. So we use Supplejack to bring all the collections into the website, and then we use our web designers to make sure that it function it works for communities. And so with that user contribution part, we made sure that if somebody contributes to the website, it's there, it's the copyright is theirs. We don't want to take the ownership of someone's information and their knowledge. So we did that all with the lawyers to make sure that they're credited. And so if someone does write on our website a really great story, we make sure that they're acknowledged by the original content partner. Because we had an instance where one of them just scraped that and they didn't acknowledge the user, and their metadata looked amazing, but it made the user look silly. So, yeah, so we're like the bridge. So, making sure that our users are acknowledged for their knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, very important. Um, Here's another question that s- I'll just read it. I'm guessing that you've
Yeah,
probably connected with the Pacific Manuscripts Bureau resources,
yeah.
mainly on
Oh,
microfilm, but not digitized.
yeah. Oh, yes, we do work with Pambu and Kari, but the thing is, they're on a subscription. So we only share collections that are publicly available. And because they're on a subscription, we can't share their things. So our
Um,
users would, yeah. So we're trying. Kari's a great friend. We're trying to work with her and trying to come about with a way to make their collections available. But she's doing a great job digitizing the collections in the Pacific. Yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions. Apologies if I've missed any. So Jill and Kerry, did there's anything you wanted to finish up with before we wrap up today?
No, that was a fabulous session. Thank you, Taputo. And yeah, lots to think about. I'm going to rewatch it myself
Yeah.
when I'm finished. But
Oh,
Kerry, you got any?
No, that was
No,
awesome. Thank you.
yeah.
It was really good.
Well, what I'd like to do is thank you very much today, Taputo, from our group, for sharing such valuable resource. I'm so impressed with that many partner organisations.
oh, we cheat a little bit.
Yeah, well, if you're off the back of Trove or whatever and you're a
Yeah, the
Piano,
Trovan European.
yeah, that'll bump your numbers, but it's still fabulous, and it's such a big job you've got of curating things that could be culturally sensitive.
Yeah.
Um,
So all the
but
stuff from Europeana we really need to watch out for
yeah,
because, but I've also found that the European institutions are always willing to change. So
that's good.
they have been amazing at connecting with the Pacific communities, but
Yep,
connecting with us to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So yeah,
that
it's
that's the
been,
benefit, isn't it? So it's not
yeah,
just you taking their data, but you're informing them that maybe you
yeah,
shouldn't have it like that, or here's more information.
yeah,
And
they actually
when I
open, really
look
open.
Yeah, that's great. When I looked at your glass plates, I thought so much of our things. We've got some glass plates as well. And
Mm,
sometimes all you can do is say man or woman when you're going back
yeah,
1890. But there could be people that still know, but it's
yeah,
just that a connection with Facebook and so on now is so good that you've
mm.
opened those dialogues as well. But
Um,
sorry.
oh, sorry, we just had like a collection viewing today with the community for Cook Islands Language Week,
Uh-huh.
and just there was young students from university that came to see the collection, and they were identifying their grandparents in these
Mm,
photographs, even though they were pretty, old records, but they were still being able to recognize the people. So yeah, just having
that's
like
really good.
to,
Gives you a
it
buzz.
didn't take long. Yeah.
No, no,
And
it's lovely.
so
And they can go back
um
and tell their communities, I went to the library and I helped out there.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really
and
good.
they were able to write down their grandparents'
Mm,
names so that we can add that to the metadata
yeah, and get it right. Yeah,
and get it right.
yeah, that's fabulous.
Mm.
Well, thank you again. And I just wanted to mention that Kerry and Annette have done a lot of the work this year, but we've got another webinar coming up um, on the 28th. Oh, sorry, I've got it wrong now. 22nd of October on for digital preservation. And Kerry's leading this one, but we've got Robin Wright from the Digital Preservation Coalition, and she'll be chatting to us about their work. And then Kerry is going to do a talk about XFIT tool, GUI, Bagger, and Droid. And if I haven't pronounced them properly, I'm sorry, Kerry. Maybe you could tell us what you're going to be talking about next time.
That's okay. I'm going to do practical demonstrations of how to use those three tools on the files that you have once you've digitized items or if you're collecting born digital items, because I can't find anywhere out there that gives practical demonstrations. So I'm going to make my
That'll
own.
that'll be a big hour, Kerry.
It will be. Hopefully
Yeah.
the tech works.
And just an in advance question, are they expensive
They're
software?
all free,
All
free,
free?
free, free.
Potentially, is it an idea for our groups then to have that already installed so that we can get through all the hoops at our organisations to do that?
Um, you can if you want to. I
If we're
might put some
keen,
stuff on I might send out an email about it, but usually it's a bit hard. But if people can watch and
Yes.
watch the recording and then do it later, then that will work as well.
So good. Thank you for all that. That'll be really good. Well, again, also, Annette, thank you for your connections today. And of course, our partner, Heather at Alia. And I think we're done.
Okay.
So have a fabulous rest of the week, and we'll see you next time, I hope.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jill.
everyone.
Thank
See you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.